Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Trey Ball. You are listening to our Way Too Early series. This is part three, and we've covered the MVP, Most Improved, Defensive Player of the Year, the Sixth Man. Our previous episode, we covered Rookie of the Year. Right now, we are going to talk about the Western Conference Finals, Eastern Conference Finals, and the NBA Finals. Now, um, it's widely agreed that there's an NBA championship team in the LA Lakers that is by far the favorites, in my opinion. There is the Clippers that are a threat to that. Very small threat, in my opinion, as well, because we have no idea what's going to happen in the playoffs. Um, in the Eastern Conference, we have the Milwaukee Bucks, who is in the regular season, they're always hanging around the top, but they don't necessarily get it done in the playoffs. There's question marks in Philadelphia. There's a new player in town in Indiana. Sabonis is healthy again. Him and Miles Turner are playing great basketball. One of my biggest question marks is what is going to happen with Miami. Now, everybody knows this. I am a Miami Heat fan through and through, all the way back to the days of Alonzo and Tim Hardaway. That has been my squad. I mean, as a young fan, it transitioned from, Jordan and all them. I grew up in a Chicago Bulls household. From the Bulls and then the Miami Heat. That was my transition. So right now, my biggest pet peeve with them is what's going on with the entire NBA and how it's different from how Miami's being treated. So, real quick, this is my conspiracy, okay? The Miami Heat was they were not supposed to be in the NBA Finals last year, according to the league. Everybody in the league agreed that Miami was not supposed to be there. They called them a fluke team because of the bubble and the strange situations, blah 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 blah. So I think that the league is trying to correct that error. They're trying to get that back under control because look, if you look at all of the postponed games, most of those games are Philly, Boston. I think there was one or two Milwaukee games that were canceled. There's only been one or two Miami Heat. No, I think there was only one Miami Heat game that got canceled. The rest, Miami has played with seven guys, 7 or 8 guys available. All right. Miami is playing without Jimmy Butler, Tyler Hero, Achua, Avery Bradley, Myers Leonard. That's 5 rotation guys and two of your best players, okay? And one of your best free agents that you signed this year. They also played 2 or 3 games without Bam Adebayo, your other All-Star. Played 3 or 4 games without Goran Dragic, your other All-Star. You also played without Iggy at one point, former Finals MVP. You've played with majority of the G League signees that you had. So they have two-way contracts with a couple of guys. Those guys are actually playing. Vincent, he's starting right now for them. Actually, I think he's starting tonight. And he's the guy who was on a two-way contract 2 years ago. So, I mean, they don't even have a full roster, basically. They don't have any of their players that would make this a good team to even compete night in and out. The only thing they have is, I mean, league said we got to play tonight, so we're just going to play the best we can. And they're not the sort of team that's going to make excuses. They're going to say, well, we came with a game plan. The game plan didn't work. It doesn't matter who we put out there. We still have to stick to the game plan, play our hardest, play our hearts out, so on and so forth. So the way I see it, the league is correcting the error that they think they made in the bubble last season by even allowing the Miami Heat to get to the NBA Finals and make them look like they're some sort of contender or championship threat to the guys at the higher levels, which I think that makes absolutely no sense because they ran through Boston and Milwaukee last season in the same playoffs. And they zipped up Indiana and they took the LA Lakers to 2 games, knowing that LeBron and Anthony Davis were the two best players on the floor. And it's just it blows my mind How, first of all, they think last year was a fluke. Second, they also think that I mean, I've seen a couple comments here and there, just scouring the internet, looking through sports columns and things of that nature, just looking around, and everybody think this is the Miami Heat's true colors, which is, I'm not gonna say what it is, but I mean, you know what it is: 9, 10, and 11, as Skip Bayless likes to say. So, I mean, you can hear I'm bothered a lot. But coming out of the East, I have the Brooklyn Nets. I keep wanting to call them New Jersey. I think it's happened like 4 or 5 times now, but Brooklyn Nets. They add James Harden. I know they lose Jared Allen, Karis LeVert. Hope he gets well, but this trade was actually a blessing in disguise for him. So whether he wanted to leave Brooklyn or not, I'm happy for him because they caught something that was very important. There was a growth on his kidney that they were able to get him checked out, and I believe he has surgery already to get that resolved. But that's a blessing in disguise for him. They lost a couple draft picks here and there. I think they lost maybe 4 or 5 and 3 swaps. Um, but when you break this trade down, okay, James Harden wants to get out of Houston. We'll touch on that in just a moment. But the biggest thing that I look at when I look at the Brooklyn Nets is you have all of the firepower in the world on the offensive side of the ball. I do not see one single defensive stopper. I don't see a single one. I don't see it in Kyrie, Harris, Green, Harden, Durant, Jordan. I don't see it anywhere. If someone sees it, please point them out. But I don't see it anywhere. Shaman, I don't see a single defensive stopper. Who's gonna stop? Who's gonna stop Giannis on the defensive side of the ball? I mean, they're not these. They don't have any defensive masterminds on their coaching staff. So I don't know where the game plan is gonna come up to stop Giannis, like Boston was able to in the past, like the Raptors were able to, and then like Miami did last year. I don't see them doing that type of game plan. They're just going to try to shoot everybody out of the building. I don't see them being able to stop Boston defensively. I don't see them being able to stop. There's a lot of teams that are going to be able to get a lot of buckets on them. The problem is for those other teams is, can you outscore them, which they won't be able to do. But championships are won on the defensive end. Period. I don't care what anybody says. Like you seen from Golden State, they had KD, Steph, Clay, Draymond. Look, for all the firepower in the world, but they are one of the best defensive teams of the last 10 years that we've seen. Period. Not even a question about it. So you can shoot and score as much as you want to, but you're going to have to get stops in the NBA Finals to be the champs. I mean, game one of 2018, they almost gave one away because they couldn't get stops. They couldn't stop LeBron from scoring the ball. Went crazy, had 51, one of the best NBA Finals performances we've ever seen, but the best one of his career. They got lucky. They could not stop him all night. So you got to be able to defend. And the Lakers, they are bred to do that. You have um, my choice in this year's Defensive Player of the Year. Anthony Davis should have been last year's as well, but defensive ratings say otherwise, and it went in Giannis' favor. But they have Anthony Davis. They have a former Defensive Player of the Year. He may not be as young as he was, but intelligence is still key at this stage of the game. Marcus All. You have Montrezl Harrell, LeBron. You still have KCP. You have Wesley Matthews. Schroeder is a good defensive player at the point guard position. You have the Morris Swing. They have a lot of guys that can lock down and play defense and shoot the ball. And if you get in a situation where you need a bucket, you have LeBron, you have Anthony Davis, KCP can hit the shot. Wesley Matthews can hit the shot. Schroeder, he can run the pick and roll to perfection with Trez and get a bucket. There's a lot of guys that can do a lot of things on both sides of the ball. And I think that's going to be the determining factor for the Brooklyn Nets, whether they face the Clippers or whether they face the Lakers, is can we get stops? Because Anthony Davis and LeBron, they can go off too. They can have big nights, 30, 40. We've seen LeBron have 50 in the finals. Paul George, question mark. I mean, Paul George. We don't know what he's going to give us, but right now he's looking, saying, and doing the right thing. So we'll throw him in there. Kawhi, we know what he does in the playoffs. He can go for 30 or 40. I don't know if they have the necessarily have the firepower to go toe to toe with Brooklyn, but you can bet that Paul George on James Harden and putting Patrick Beverly on Kyrie and put Kawhi on KD, they're not getting easy shots that whole game. They're gonna have to earn those points, and that's what I like about the West Coast. I mean, whether it's the Clippers or the Lakers, they're gonna make the Brooklyn Nets work for every bucket. I don't know if there's a team in the East that can do that. They're not going to be able to stack up defensively against them. So I mean, my pick is Brooklyn in the finals coming out. I think they'll beat. Ooh, who did they beat? Who do they beat? Philly looks great right now. Philly looks really good right now. I might say Philly because um, I think we got to figure out. Boston has to figure out what to do with the Kemba Walker situation. Do they trade him? Do they keep him? Do you want to see Russell Westbrook in Boston? Maybe send Kemba to Washington. I don't know. I don't know, but he might be somebody that you look at moving. Kyle Lowry is probably going to be on the trade block because Toronto's floating closer and closer to the bottom. So you might want to get your older guys out of there and get some young bloods in there. I don't know, but that point guard position is a big question mark for Boston because Brown and Tatum, they can score and defend with the best of them. They're up and cover two-way superstars. Two-way superstars. Not just all-stars, superstars. They can score at an elite level, and Jaylen Brown has an incredible start to the season. So I think, those two positions are solidified. They can go toe-to-toe with James Harden and Kevin Durant any given night in the playoff series. I have no problem with saying that. Obviously, KD and Harden are is the better tandem, but I've seen enough from Tatum and Brown to say they can hold their own on any given night. But like I said, if we're if our X Factor matchup is Kyrie and Kemba, Kyrie's proven himself in the playoffs when he has superstars around him. So I have no problem taking the Brooklyn Nets over the Boston Celtics. Philly, Embiid would have to be a dominating presence. He's been that so far this season, but can he do that when the chips are on the center of the table? Hey, I would like to believe so, but you got to show me. So Embiid and Simmons, can they do this? Maybe. Did you make the right move by not moving Simmons for James Harden? We don't know yet, but we're still trying to figure that out. But so far, so good. They're sitting at the top of the Eastern Conference. Um, I like it. And then you add in Danny Green and Seth Curry, both elite shooters. You still have Tobias Harris. You bring in Daryl Morey and you bring in Doc Rivers. I think there's going to be some movement going on throughout the season. There's a trade to be made because those guys are really smart at adding pieces around their all stars and superstars. So I have no doubt in my mind that there's going to be some sort of move that's going to shake things up just a little bit more or make slight adjustments. So I like Philly. So I think the safe choice right now is Philadelphia, Brooklyn in the conference finals 4-2 Brooklyn. Um, I don't feel comfortable with Milwaukee only because they've shown me what they are, and like the saying goes: if someone is telling you who they are, believe them. Believe them. And I believe Milwaukee is at best a regular season number one seed and a second or third round playoff knockout every single time. I just don't trust them because I don't trust Giannis late in games to be the guy to take those shots, to be the guy to knock down an outside jumper or knock down his free throws. He went 1 for 10 just 2 nights ago. So I'm believing everybody that's telling me who they are, except for Philly, because I think they have a change of culture that took place this offseason. It's going to bode well for them. I like them going to the conference finals this year. If Miami can't get it together, uh, those are my picks. But if Miami can get it together, I got them linking up in the second round with Boston or Philly. And whoever wins that series, like I just said, I choose Philly in the conference finals against Brooklyn 4-2. I have the Lakers edging out the Clippers, game 7. Now, I feel this is where Paul George is going to be under the biggest microscope of his career. It gets bigger every single year, starting when he had that breakout playoff series against the Miami Heat in 2013, 2014. When he went toe to toe with LeBron, we knew the potential he had, we knew the scoring prowess he had, the defensive ability he had, and we've been waiting and waiting and waiting for him to take that next step. I feel like we're starting to look at him how we did Tracy McGrady and Carmelo. Great potential, great player, but is he ever going to make it out of the first or second round? Like, what are we just not believing who he's telling us he is, or do we still need to give him another shot? So we'll find out this year. I don't put too much pressure on Kawhi for the simple fact that he's a two-time MVP of the NBA Finals and a two-time champion. So I mean, the fallout from Brooklyn, I give him maybe 15 to 20% of the blame, considering that first of all he carried them just about most of the way in the playoffs. Uh and also he's carried Toronto to the NBA Finals, and he nearly knocked the 2017 Warriors out of the playoffs if he didn't tear his ankle. I mean, remember they were up 21 points before he got hurt in that game one. So we could be looking at history very differently had he not gotten hurt that game. So, I mean, I don't completely absolve him from blame, but I don't give him as much as I do Doc Rivers and Paul George. Um, Lou Will and Trez were a part of that because you have two guys that are reigning six man of the year back to back years. They should be able to come in and make some sort of impact to where you don't lose a double digit lead 3 games in a row and get some home packing. I mean, there's no way possible that you can't make something happen. If Paul George and Kawhi don't have it, cool, go to the bench. Trez and Lou Will should be able to get you at least 25 to 30 just between themselves. So that's like either both of them get 13 apiece, and you know maybe let's say Lou Will got 13 points and in the second half, and Trez got 13 or 14 in the second half, putting big rebound numbers up, getting assists left and right. That should have been enough to at least hold Denver off barely, just to hold them off to at least squeak by 3 or 4. But Paul George and Kawhi played so terrible that game that it was just impossible to hold them off the entire night without Lou Will and Trez chipping in to help. So it is what it is. I do think Ibaka was a big addition. Big addition. That was a very big addition for them. My thing about that is you add an Ibaka, but let's say you still had Montrezl Harrell. If Trez was still coming off the bench for them, I might be leaning towards the Clippers. But because he's on the other side now, I think I look at him as the X factor for their bench, the Lakers bench. Another thing too is Reggie Jackson and Patrick Beverly are not good enough to compete with the Lakers with LeBron and Dennis Schroeder running the point guard position for them. So there's a lot of there's a lot of things to consider here, and the most important thing is I probably should have touched on this sooner is Rondo. Rondo is in Atlanta now. Um, if he was to go to the Clippers, the tide may have turned as well, and we may not see Triz in a Lakers uniform. So, I mean, there's a lot of ifs and maybes and possibilities that go on just between the Clippers and the Lakers. But, I mean, I don't really have to say anything other than they have Anthony Davis and LeBron. They don't really have anything to worry about. So, I got Lakers in the NBA Finals against Brooklyn. Because I don't want to decide, I'm gonna say Game 7. Easiest cop out in NBA predictions. Period. Easiest cop out. Game 7 automatically. Um, I would love to see James Harden and Kyrie shake some of those demons. But I do want to see if Anthony Davis could be the MVP. LeBron's talked about handing the keys off to AD. I want to see if he can be that Finals MVP now. If he's gonna, take over as the season goes on and as they get deeper into the playoffs, is he gonna take over and be that guy? Um, I think ultimately Kevin Durant might be that guy before Anthony Davis is, from the perspective of we've seen what happens when KD gets a super team. I don't think this is going to be any different. I think once the playoffs start, you're just going to see there's and I think this has been a little bit disrespectful in the past. Like, um, I've seen charts where there's LeBron at the very top, and then there's everybody else maybe one or two tiers below. I think when the playoffs comes, I think KD can be on that top tier with LeBron. If you give them both super teams, I think LeBron and KD can look each other eye to eye, and I mean whoever blinks first, whoever's gonna hit that big shot, or in LeBron's case, make that big time block. That's who's gonna win the game. So, Game 7, Brooklyn, LA Lakers, 2021 NBA Finals, and I'm not picking until I actually have to. That's a wrap. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed the show. Special thanks to Curtis Murphy and Murphy Lee Training for sponsoring this episode. If you want to stay up to date on merchandise or simply update your game, please click the link in the description to stay up to date on all things Murphy Lee Training. Till next time, you know the rules.